اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله. فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء. لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله. فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء. والله على كل شيء قدير. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به
ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما عملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين صدق اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار على رسول الله وآله
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد جل فرجا.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Jazakallah khair. Once again, respected Qari Gul Ahmad, for that powerful and breathtaking recitation of the Holy Quran. It truly touches the heart, like I always say. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family and grant you all of the jaza in this world and the next. Tonight, of course, we commemorate the great companions of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam, those brave heroes of Karbala who stood in front of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein as a shield while the volley of arrows flew upon them from the enemy soldiers. These blessed heroes who we extol and praise and have done so for over 1,000 years. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we can truly be inspired by their example and build our lives and improve our characters for the better. Unfortunately, tonight there is no youth speaker as he had some personal issues. So insha'Allah, we'll proceed straight to the main lecture from Sheikh Hamid Waqar. Please welcome with 3 loud salawats ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبو القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Alhamdulillah, we've reached another night of Muharram and we've been blessed to partake in another majlis. Inshallah, we're continuing on the theme that we've been going over, using this Muharram as an excuse to renew our pledge to Imam al-Zaman alayhi salam that inshallah we will be part of his followers, we will be admitted into his army. And we know that just living the lives that we're living now is not enough. We need to take a few steps forward. Because there's many people who were closer than us and fell. Right? And what we mean by fall here is make mistakes, is take a step backwards and not follow the masoom, the infallible, in the way that they should be followed. Not be a true follower of the divine representative on earth, which is what we all strive to be. But what happens to these people, Allah judges them, we don't judge them. We just see, we could just kind of derive from their history. The person we want to talk about today is Usama ibn Zayd. Right? So Usama, the son of Zayd. Zayd is Zayd ibn Harith, right? So we know Zayd was a slave who was captured. He has a whole story, very interesting, but he was raised with the Prophet, raised up in the Prophet's household, very close to the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salam, right? His marriage to Zainab, not Sayyidah Zainab salam alayha of Karbala, but Zainab, who later became the wife of the Prophet. There's a lot of interesting points in that story, but that's for another time, right? Osama then, after he divorces from Zainab, he marries another woman, and he has Osama. The Prophet, because of the closeness of Zayd to the Prophet considered Osama to be similar to a grandson. He loved Osama. There's traditions we have that Osama would ride on the shoulders of the Prophet, and the Prophet would play with him and take him around. Right? He was raised in that environment. He was raised close to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. There's no way that he didn't know the position of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Imam Ali alayhi salam was there. Later on, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Imam Hussain alayhi salam were born, and they were all together. They lived in close proximity. Right? So we know this. Now, we also know Osama fought in many battles, was a very good companion of Rasulullah. But the most famous part of his history is when he was appointed as the commander of the army that was sent to fight the Romans at the very end of the Prophet's life. So after the farewell Hajj, after Ghadir Khum, before the Prophet passes away, right, he sends an army to confront the Romans who were pillaging Muslim lands. He put Osama in charge. Imam Ali alayhi salam was told to stay back in Medina. Right? And we know Hadith al-Manzila came from that. The Prophet ordered many of the companions to go under the command of Osama ibn Zayd. Many of them refused. Amongst them, Abu Bakr, Omar, and so on and so forth. Right? Zayd goes. As Zayd has marched out, the Prophet passes away. Abu Bakr, after Saqifa, is put in charge of the Muslim Ummah. Abu Bakr tells Osama, keep going. Osama makes a statement. He says, the person who was under my command recently is now commanding me. But he kept going. He continued along with what the Prophet asked him to do, and then he came back. And because of this position that the Prophet put him in, he became a prominent member of the society. And it seems like becoming a prominent member of the society is dangerous. Because we see a lot of people who were followers of Rasulullah, followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, when they enter a position of prominence, somehow they falter. Somehow after that we see some mistakes. We see them trying to keep that status quo that they've obtained. Keep that prominence. Even when they shouldn't. Right? So, we mentioned yesterday when we were talking about Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas that Sa'd didn't fight in the battle of Jamal. Right? Osama ibn Zayd, he also abstained. Osama ibn Zayd knew the position of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he actually went up to Imam Ali. And he said, Imam, he didn't say Imam, but he said, Ali ibn Abi Talib, maintain the provisions that I'm receiving, and I will go into the lion's mouth protecting you. Why is it conditional? Why does the Imam have to keep your provisions for you to protect him? We want to be followers of Imam al-Zaman alayhi salam. Are we going to tell Imam al-Zaman, if you keep my salary that I if you give me my salary, I'll follow you? No. I want a 10% raise. Give me a 10% raise, I'll be your follower. No, come on. Impossible. Right? So we know something's switched off. Something's not right. We're not judging. We're trying to learn. Because we want to be true followers. We want to be those who, no matter what is required from us, without any questions, yes, we obey. Yes, we'll do. Inshallah. So we have to learn, right? Now, Osama ibn Zayd ended well. He turned back, right? He took a few steps away, but then he came back. And partly due to the way the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam treated him, even after he made these mistakes. So there's a few instances in history where Osama ibn Zayd was being ridiculed by Bani Umayyah. They're ridiculing him because of the complexion of his skin. He was a little darker than Bani Umayyah wanted or liked. He was being ridiculed because his father and his mother were both freed slaves. So thank you. So they weren't prominent members of the society, even though Zayd ibn Harith was a shaheed and was, a very close companion. Right? Still, there was attacks. Who came to his defense? Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Imam Hussain stood up to the bullies of Bani Umayyah and got them off the back of Osama. Osama saw that. Osama, that fell into his heart in a good way. Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Osama continued to have a good relationship. Even when Osama fell ill and was on his deathbed, Imam Hussain comes and Osama expresses concern over a debt that he has. Imam Hussain says, don't worry, I'll repay your debt. And he did. The Imam repaid his debt. What a blessing. After Osama passes away, Imam Hassan alayhi salam is the one who shrouds him. Right? So there's huge blessings. Right? And that's a lesson for us. Because a lot of times, people in our community, people close to us, fall off the path. Right? If we excommunicate them, if we shun them, if we ridicule them, if we turn our backs to them, how are they ever going to come back? We could learn from the lifestyle of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They continued to treat them well. They didn't excommunicate them. They continued to defend them. And we see that they came back. So Osama ibn Zayd, yes, he made a mistake in the Battle of Jamal. Big mistake. He didn't join Imam Ali alayhi salam. And there was no excuse for that, because he knew his position. Big mistake. We could learn from that. We could hopefully not make that mistake with our Imam. But we could also learn how the Ahlul Bayt treated him in response. Right? They didn't say, oh, you made a mistake, forget you. You're blacklisted, you no longer exist to me. No. Right? They continue to show their love and support. And that's what we need to do. Please recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, we've been talking about a lot of different subjects because we're trying to learn the Islamic position on the major topics that are confronting this world today. We're also trying to take away practical steps from it. First lecture was about poverty. Takeaway is to find a good charitable cause and a good charitable organization and dedicate a small portion of your wealth, of your salary, of your income to this organization. Doesn't have to be big, could be very small. But try to do it on a recurrent basis. Right? The Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam gave charity constantly, both in secret and in the open. We should take their lead, follow their example. It's what they want from us. Second night, we talked about refugees. The takeaway was to maintain our Islamic identity. Don't sell short our principles, no matter where we are. Maintain our identity. Last night, we talked about the pandemics and COVID, and our takeaway was being tested. We're always being tested. And we need to constantly remember that. That's if out of all of these lectures of Muharram, you remember that little piece right there, I'll be happy. We're always being tested, and we need to pass this test. We need to realize, what is it that Islam wants from me in the situation I'm in? What does God want? Do it. Right? First recognize, then action. Right? Today we're going to speak about mental health. And the takeaway will be to speak up if you're in need. Okay? And we'll go over it. What do I mean by that? Now, I looked at some statistics, pretty astonishing statistics. They say that 1 billion people in this world have some form of mental disorder in their lifetime. 1 billion. It's a huge amount of people. It's an increase of 25% since COVID. And obviously, after COVID, the psychologists their books have been full. There's a shortage of psychologists because the amount of people that need help in the mental health sector have increased dramatically. Right? So we know that this issue is confronting not only this society, but the world at large. Right? In Australia itself, there's the statistics that 43% of Australians, 8.6 million people between the ages of 16 to 85, experience a mental disorder in their lifetime. Almost half. Almost half. 21% of Australians experience a mental illness that persists for at least 12 months. So for 1 year, they have this issue, right? The age group, 16 to 24, that number rises dramatically, 39% of them. So 40% of youth have experienced a mental illness for the duration of 1 year. It's big. That's big, right? This is something that the society is facing. In our communities, we sweep it under the rug. We pretend it doesn't exist. In many cultures, it's swept under the rug. Right? This is something we need to bring out and discuss. I remember when I was at university studying psychology, I met with a member of the community. And this is, I'll put in parentheses here, this is a turbaned member of the community. He wears a turban, but he hasn't studied in Hausa. So I don't know, for me, it's a little iffy. But regardless, this is a new trend today. So we have these new age ulama who wear turbans and don't enter Hausa. right? But anyways, one of these guys, he told me, there's no such thing as depression in Islam. There's no such thing as mental illness in Islam. What are you talking about? Reason how the conversation came up, he asked me, what are you studying psychology for? And I said, look, it's a good fit with the studies I did in Hausa. It's a good fit there, right? People come to me and talk about their marriage problems, talk about all kinds of difficulties that they're facing in life, right? And expect me to be able to help them, right? And I told him, I remember the first time that I went to give lectures outside of Qom, I went to Scotland. And when I was in, actually this wasn't Scotland, this was in the UK, but still same area, close by. When I was there, a family came to me and said, Sheikh, we need you to come to our house after the program to speak to, it was a cousin or a nephew or someone. I said, okay, no worries. Came over and the guy said, I was driving. This is what he told me, right? This is after a Muharram lecture, like tonight. I go over to their house. The guy comes to me. So yeah, Sheikh, I was driving and I was listening to music and it was, if I remember, Mariah Carey or someone, whoever it was. And they stopped singing and they started talking to me. So they listened to the radio, but somehow, he said, they stopped singing the song and Mariah Carey was talking to me and told me, go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. And then I saw triangles everywhere. And the triangles were leading me to a staircase. So I went up the staircase and it led up all the way to the roof of the hospital. And led me up to the ledge. I was standing on the ledge of the roof of the hospital and I was looking down. And I saw a whole procession of hearse. Hearse are the cars that carry coffins, dead people. So I saw a whole procession of them and I heard someone say, jump. And I got scared, I didn't jump. So what should I do? And I didn't study psychology. I've been in the Hausa for a few years at that point. Nothing in the Hausa taught me what I should say to this person, right? But I realized that, okay, I know that if I'm put in this position, people are going to come to me and they're going to ask me these type of questions. So psychology fits, and it could help me to understand, how do I tackle this issue? Now, years later, I know that he was having probably a schizophrenic episode and needed to be most likely medicated and probably put in a mental health ward for a few days. But at that point, I had no knowledge. Right? So I told this guy that story, and he said, no, mental illness doesn't exist in Islam. I said, okay. I don't know, because I know I studied Islam. I'm not saying I studied Islam so much that I'm the most knowledgeable person in the world, but in Qom, we study Islamic rulings. And there's all kinds of Islamic rulings that pertain to mental illness. Right? I'll just mention a few sections, and there's more. I'll just touch upon them. One of them is divine responsibility. When is taklif taken off of your shoulders? If you're unable to differentiate between right and wrong, right? Taklif is taken off your shoulders. So that person, as Mariah Carey is telling him to go to the roof of a hospital and jump off this hospital, right? If he missed prayer during this time, do you think that he'd be punished for that? Probably not. Because this person was so far gone from reality that he's unable to navigate through the world like we are. Right? So Islam takes responsibility off of your shoulders at that point until you get better, and then it's put back on. Right? So there's a whole discussion of when is this responsibility lifted? Right? What constitutes an inability to recognize right and wrong? What constitutes an inability to understand reality for what it is? Right? That's a whole discussion in Islam about mental illness. That's one. Second one, addiction. So there's a lot of fatwas that discuss addiction and drugs, right? For instance, a certain substance is not allowed. But if you're addicted to it, it's allowed for a certain period of time as you wean off it. Right? Because it's too difficult, or maybe it's medically dangerous to quit that substance cold turkey. So there's different rulings with regards to the addict and the non-addict. Right? Again, if we consider addiction to be a mental illness, which the majority of people do, this is a discussion about mental illness within Islam. Third one, OCD. Right? You know what OCD is? Obsessive compulsive disorder. Right? With OCD, sometimes people get urges to perform certain actions that are, let's say, not uncalled for, but that bother them. In religion, right, there's two types. There's something called scrupulosity, which we're not going to get into, but actual OCD in religious practice, we call it waswasa. Right? So for instance, someone who has to do wudu 100 times before they think that it's correct, it's an issue. They think they missed a spot in their arm. Oh no, I missed that spot. I missed that spot. Oh, I missed that spot. Or there was some barrier, there was some mane that was preventing the water from reaching their skin, right? So they have like maybe a pen mark, a little ink mark on their skin, and they wash it off so much that that a few layers of skin is actually removed, right? I know people who take showers for 3-4 hours because they're doing ghusl and they just can't do it, right? There's people that I know that repeat prayer over and over and over again because of doubts that they have in salat. Kathir shek, right? Another form of OCD, right? So we have this and OCD in layman's terms here, maybe not clinically, but we have this, and we have a whole discussion of when someone becomes kathir shek, when someone has waswasa, and then what do? You disregard your doubt. So for you who's praying normal without kathir shek, if you have a doubt in, let's say, a 4 rakat prayer, you forgot, am I in the 4th rakat or the 3rd rakat? There's something you do, right? You consider yourself in the 4th rakat, depending where you are in the prayer, but you consider yourself the 4th rakat, and then you do a salat etiyat afterwards, right? Or whatever the ruling is. There's a whole chart of rulings. The kathir shek, if he has that same doubt, disregards. Disregard the doubt. Right? If whatever their doubt is in prayer, disregard. Big difference. Right? With wudu, for you who doesn't have waswasa, if you're washing your right arm and you think, oh, I don't think I got this spot on my arm, you have to wash it. Right? You can't just say, oh, forget it, I'm going to go do my left arm now. You got to wash it. But someone who has waswasa, if they're doubting whether or not they did that part of their arm, consider you did it. The opposite ruling. Right? So there's different rulings for him. And not listening to the waswasa, not listening to the kathir, to the shek of the doubt of the kathir shek, right? That actually is the way to eliminate these thoughts. Even in modern day psychology, that's how you do it. They would teach you to do it that way. So we've had that for years. I remember, again in university, we were studying this, and one of my tutors was discussing with me. And she was actually studying, she was doing her thesis on OCD in religion, called scrupulosity. And I said, we have something in Islam about that. And I showed her a few hadith. She was like knocked off her seat. Her mind was blown. Right? That so long ago, there were the same answers that we're providing now. Right? How could we say that Islam totally rejects mental illness? In our Islamic ahkam, it exists. Right? We can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not there. But even worse, they say, if you have depression, if you have anxiety, that means you're not a true mu'min. If you were a true mu'min, you wouldn't be depressed. You would have hope in Allah. You would have this tranquility about you from your iman. Right? It's a big, big problem there. Right? We have to realize that there's huge, huge problems within our community. Suicide. I was looking at the statistics for suicide. In the year 2022, the year that we are living in right now, from January 1st to April 30th, in NSW, the state that we're living in, there is 358 suicides. 358 people who died. How many people attempted? I don't know, but way more than that. But 358 people died from suicide this year between January 1st to April 30th. That's about 3 a day. It's a lot in this state. It's not a small number. In this community it exists. I myself personally, this year, have spoken to over 10 people in this community who were inches away from killing themselves. In this community, right? We could sweep it under the rug, pretend it doesn't exist. We could say, you must not be a mu'min. Your prayer, pray, read the Quran. Right? Nah. If you need help, you need to speak up. Let's break the stigma. Let's not make it zesht or bad, shameful to seek professional help when you need it. Let's encourage it. Let's tell our brothers and our sisters, if you need help, I'll support you. I'll help you find a person who can help you. I'll assist you in this. Right? It's important. Something that needs to happen. Now, that being said, I wanted to make that very clear. On the flip side, there is a lot of research that shows that spirituality does have a positive effect in increasing well-being. Doesn't mean that if you pray, you can't have depression. I am not saying that. You can. But if you increase your spirituality, you'll be increasing your well-being, which could fight against the depression. In modern psychology, contemporary psychology, mindfulness is huge. Mindfulness is a form of spirituality. Being mindful and present in the moment. Meditation is part of mindfulness. Meditation is a form of spirituality. Prayer could be a form of mindfulness as well. And as Muslims, we'd consider it the best form of mindfulness. But do we have anything supporting that? Is that just something that I'm throwing out there? Or do we have words from our Imams supporting that. There's a very good book. It's a book called Adab al-Salat, the etiquette of prayer, written by Imam Khomeini. Translated into English, this book goes over the esoteric or the inner dimensions of prayer. It's really one of the most beautiful, beautiful books talking about prayer. In this book, the Imam recounts a tradition from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And in this tradition, the Imam is describing prayer. I'll just read a little bit of it. Obviously without the tafsir that Imam Khomeini gave, because you could read that and that would be outside of the scope of this discussion. But I just want to read a little bit of this hadith. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says about wudu, when you intend to perform wudu, proceed to the water as you proceed to Allah's mercy. Right? How many times when we perform wudu, we just do it so quickly that we don't even know what we did? Are we thinking about anything? Are we present in the moment? Are we thinking about God when we're performing wudu? We should be. Our intention is we're doing this for God. Right? But how deep in thought are we? Or is it just something we're just racing through? Right? I tell some people when you do wudu and you put your hand under the water, right? Your right hand. You put it under the water. Just take 1 second and just feel the water on your hand. Just do that small one split second. You feel that water, and then what happens? You're in the moment. You realize what you're doing. Right? You could think of God. You could think of this tradition. Go to the water as you go towards Allah's mercy. Very simple. Be in the moment. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, when you face the Qibla, despair of the world and what is in it, and of the creatures, the makhlukeen, and of what they're busy with. This is the bit though. Empty your heart of whatever takes your attention away from God. When you face the Qibla, be in the moment. Only think of God. Nothing else. The definition of mindfulness is to focus your attention on the one thing that you're doing in that moment. It's exactly what he's saying. Right? We have all the traditions that when the Imam stood from prayer, what would happen? Their color would change, they would shake, they would sweat, you could see the fear in their faces because they realize what they're doing. For me, I stand and face the prayer, right? Not even a split second of thought goes on, and Allahu Akbar, and there you go. Right? Take that moment. You stand up. Take a deep breath. What are you going to do right now? Who are you speaking with? What is happening? Right? That tiny second of thought, I guarantee you, will make you feel your prayer. If you struggle with feeling your prayer, do that. Right? We have traditions from the Imams telling us to be cognizant, to be aware in prayer. What are you doing? Ruku, Imam Sadiq says, alayhi salam, no servant bows in ruku in a true way unless Allah adorns him with the light of His brilliance and shades him with His majesty and clothes him with the gown of His chosen friends. And he continues. And he has about sujood and tashahud and all the other parts of prayer. Every aspect of prayer is special. Allah is not telling us, stand, bend down, do sujood, sit down, stand up, for no reason. Each one of these positions has a purpose, has a reason, has some hikmah behind it. The Imams talk about it. Go read this book. This interests you, read that book. Right? Every little aspect. And if we're thinking about it as we're doing it, it intensifies our prayer. Right? And if our prayer is intensified, it gives us that tranquility in our hearts. If we have that tranquility in our hearts, it's like a shield. It will help us to improve our well-being. It won't eliminate depression completely, but it'll give us some protection. Right? Am I saying if you pray correctly, you can't have depression? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if you pray correctly, you'll have a shield that could help you. Right? But still, you might face a traumatic event. You might get shaken, and you might have to recuperate from that. You might not be able to recuperate instantaneously. It might take you a minute. That's okay. If you need help, what do? Speak up. Go seek the help you need. Get over that difficulty that you're facing, and then you move forward. Right? That's the message of this night. If you need help, speak up. Don't be like those people who could have spoken up, decided not to out of fear, decided not to out of embarrassment, decided not to because they were worried what people might think about them, and ended up harming themselves. Don't do that. Right? Because that's the worst thing. Right? I was talking to a person. He was in deep problems. Right? Deep difficulty. He said he went up to a roof to jump off. The only thing that saved him, right? Because it was on a job site and he locked the lift from being able to come up. No one could come up to him. So one of his co-workers realized what was happening and somehow climbed up the scaffold, climbed up the side of the building, got to the roof to take him down. Right? Within inches of his life. He didn't talk to anyone. He told me, I didn't believe in depression until I experienced it. I couldn't understand. Now I do. So many people that I speak to say the same thing. I didn't get it. But once it happened to me, now I do. Let's not go to those extremes if we don't have to. Let's break this stigma, encourage people, applaud people who seek help for seeking help. Help them get back on track and moving forward, inshallah. We were talking about prayer. There's one prayer on the day of Karbala, on the day of Ashura, in the land of Karbala, that was extraordinary. I want to talk about this very briefly before I end. And tonight we're talking about the companions, right? So there's a couple companions who became shaheed in this prayer. So we know the time of Dhuhr, noon, came, and it became wajib to pray. There's different rules of prayer on the battlefield than off of the battlefield. So there's a type of prayer called Salat al-Khawf, the prayer of fear. And that could replace the wajib 4-rakat prayer in certain circumstances. Even performing that prayer, you don't have to if your life is seriously in danger. But the Imam decided it's necessary to establish prayer in the battlefield. And the battle had started. This isn't before the battle. Hur, which we discussed last night, became shaheed before the prayer. Prayer came after Hur became shaheed. Right? So this prayer happened as fighting was going on. Time for prayer came, Imam said, let's go. He asked Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, he asked Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi to stand in front. And even of the companions, half of the companions stood in front, the other half prayed. So half of them were standing guard, the other half were praying behind the Imam. And remember the dream I talked about last night? Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi and Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, they didn't falter. They didn't move. They saw the arrows coming and welcomed them. Right? As they're getting struck by arrows and protecting the Imam and the congregation, the Imam finishes his prayers and he raises his hands in dua. He says, "O honorable men, here is paradise. Its gates are wide open for you. Its rivers are joining one another. Fruits have been ripened. In front of you is Rasulullah, the shuhada who were killed fi sabilillah in the path of God. They're all waiting for you to join them." Right? This is the Imam talking to the companions. He knows what's going to happen. He knows everyone's going to become shaheed. So he's giving them encouragement. They're congratulating one another on your account. Defend the religion of God. Defend His Prophet. Defend the women of Rasulullah. Right? And at this point, they respond, "May our lives be sacrificed for yours. May our blood protect yours. By God, by Allah, as long as blood flows in our veins, you will be protected and your women will be protected." And that's what happened. The companions didn't allow the Ahlul Bayt, not that they were ruling over them, but how could the companions allow the Ahlul Bayt to go forward before them? They went forward to protect. Then the Ahlul Bayt, right? The companions were there giving their lives. Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi was struck many times by these arrows. He falls to the ground, right? He makes a dua as he falls to the ground. He says, "Oh Allah, curse these people, Yazid's army, as you curse the people of Ad and Thamud, and convey my salam to your Prophet, and tell him about the pain which I went through protecting his grandson." Right? Send my salams to your Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Then he turns to Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He asks him, "Have I carried out my responsibility, my obligation, Yabna Rasulullah? Have I done what I was supposed to do?" Right? Think about this. It's recorded there were 13 arrows lodged in his chest. 13. And that's in addition to all of the sword wounds that he had from fighting before the prayer. So he fought before the prayer, was injured, stood in front of the prayer, got hit by 13 arrows. He's gone. People don't have that kind of strength. He's dying. But he can't go until he's rest assured that the Imam of the time is pleased with him. That's big. Right? What can we learn from him? The Imam says, "Yes, of course you fulfilled your obligation. You'll reach paradise before I do." What can we learn? Right? Is our Imam happy with us? Are we living a lifestyle that would make our Imam proud? If we're about to pass away, before we die, can we genuinely say, Yabna Rasulullah, have I fulfilled my obligation? If Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi had a doubt after he did all that, what about us? What have we done? How many arrows have we taken? Right? Me, not even one. And I'm talking metaphorically, not physically. Right? It's something that we need to do, open our eyes. Inshallah, me before you guys, realize we need to take real steps forward. That's what this Muharram is for. It's to remind ourselves, to make that pledge. Learn from Imam Hussain and the companions. Right? These companions of Imam Hussain are what we strive to be for Imam Zaman alayhi salam. Take their lead. Take their example. And then we too can be rewarded. We shouldn't even care about the rewards. But we too could be true followers of our Imam. Inshallah, please recite 3 salawats as Brother Hussain comes and discusses the martyrdom of the other companions of Imam Hussain alayhi salam.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As always, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Hamid, for that amazing lecture tonight. No doubt, as we remember the companions of Karbala, we too can strive to make improvements in our salat, to try and reach that level as far as we can. Just imagine how much love one has to have for the Ahlul Bayt, how much love they have to stand in front of them as the arrows are coming from the enemy soldiers, piercing through their flesh one by one, and they continue to stand for as long as they can. Subhanallah, it's unbelievable. Over the last 3 nights, Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Hamid mentioned the examples of Zubair, of Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, and tonight, of course, Osama. Tonight's example, it was a throwback to the example of Hur in a way. That forgiving character of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, Osama ibn Zayd, his actions, just as Sa'ad's actions, they might have been the tipping point, they might have been the balance that could have prevented a tragedy like Karbala from occurring. We don't know. It might have been the case. Yet despite this, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam forgives him and pays off all of his debts. This is his character. It's unbelievable. Tonight, inshallah, I would like to speak about the great companion of Imam al-Hussein, Jawn ibn Huway, radiyallahu anhu. Amongst the companions of Imam al-Hussein, there was a contingent, a clutch, who were his personal servants. And in the prelude to the tragedy of Karbala, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam freed all of these servants. He said to them, "Go, save yourselves. This is not your quarrel, this is not your fight. You have no obligation towards me. Go, free yourselves." But these servants, they know of the character of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. They have such love for him. They know his virtue, his kindness, his generosity, and they know that he is being wronged and that he is in such a susceptible position at the hands of these vile individuals, and they refuse to leave him in this hour of need. All of them, they say, "No, we are staying with you." Jawn ibn Huway originated from Ethiopia, and so he was of a darker skin tone. He asked Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam for permission to fight, but Imam al-Hussein did not allow him. Jawn originally, he was amongst the servants of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, and afterwards he was gifted to Imam Ali's great companion, Abu Dhar al-Ghifari radiyallahu anhu. And we mentioned the same name repeatedly during our programs because this man, Abu Dhar, he was truly a revolutionary, such an inspirational figure. The Holy Prophet once said that there is no one between the heavens and the earth who is more truthful than Abu Dhar al-Ghifari. This was the kind of man he was. He would always speak out against the corruption, the nepotism, the looting of the public treasury during the time of the third caliph. He did not shy away from this, and because of this he was exiled from one place to another, put into prison, tortured, and yet he did not stop speaking. And those in power, they were terrified of Abu Dhar al-Ghifari. Ultimately, Abu Dhar ended up in the land called Rabada. And in this land, this is where Abu Dhar met his end, in a barren location with nothing to eat. The only thing he had to eat was the poison grass that was beneath him. He died, and so did his son Dhar. And when Abu Dhar died, Imam Ali alayhi salam and Imam Hassan and Hussein were heartbroken. Imam Hassan and Hussein, in their farewell to Abu Dhar before he was exiled, they called him uncle. This is how much they loved Abu Dhar al-Ghifari. This was a huge blow to the Ahlul Bayt عليهم الصلاة والسلام. Jawn ibn Huway was not present at Rabada. Instead, he returned to the service of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and afterwards Imam al-Hassan, and finally Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. And as we mentioned, Imam al-Hussein freed his servants, yet they refused to leave him. And Jawn ibn Huway, he was no exception to this. Jawn ibn Huway asked for permission to fight, but Imam al-Hussein, because of Jawn's age, the traditions, the history, they say that he was 80 years old. Imam al-Hussein says to him, "Jihad is not obligatory upon the elderly. I do not want to see you hurt. Please do not fight." And Jawn ibn Huway says something that hurts Aba Abdullah al-Hussein so much. As we mentioned, he was from Abyssinia. He was of dark skin. And he says to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, "You do not want my black blood to mix with yours." And Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is hurt by this so deeply. He says to him, "Do not say such things, my friend. We do not hold these kinds of differences." And he finally gives him permission to fight. Joan ibn Huway goes towards the battlefield and he says to the enemy soldiers, why are you fighting Imam al-Hussain? This is the grandson of Rasulullah who would climb upon his back when he was in sujood. Imam al-Hussain would climb upon the back of Rasulullah, his grandfather, and the Holy Prophet loved him so much that he did not rise from sujood because he did not want Abi Abdullah to fall and hurt himself. And now Imam al-Hussain was surrounded. Imam al-Hussain was surrounded and suffering from the thirst and heat of Karbala along with his family and his companions. Joan ibn Huway, ultimately he faces the men. He is so powerful even at this age. He is such a capable warrior. The history says that he killed 25 men before finally suffering a fatal wound, and he fell upon the field of battle, close to the doors of death. And at this moment, Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam come towards Joan with Abbas, his brother, and Ali Akbar, his son, by his side. Imam al-Hussain grabs the head of Joan and he places it upon his lap. Imam al-Hussain is crying and crying for his servant Joan. He is crying and he apologizes to Joan. He says to him that he suffered so badly on his account, and Joan replies to him, do not apologize. Do not apologize. I am seeing Fatimatul Zahra. I am seeing Rasulullah. I can see Imam al-Hassan and Imam Ali, and they are welcoming me into the doors of the afterlife. And Imam al-Hussain continues to cry until Joan takes his final breath in the lap of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. Imam al-Hussain says a prayer for Joan. He says, Ya Allah, brighten the face of Joan, make his sweat fragrant. Let him be amongst the virtuous in paradise, so that he may join Muhammad and his progeny. Imam al-Hussain is heartbroken at the death of Joan. After the events of Karbala, Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam is present in the court of Yazid la'natullah alayhi. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam is present, and Yazid la'natullah alayhi offers to make restitution. He offers him abundant wealth in return for the pain and suffering of Karbala, and Imam al-Sajjad tells him that this is a debt that you can never repay, because all of the wealth in the world would not equal even a single drop of the blood of Joan ibn Huway. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. Ya Allah, bless Joan ibn Huway, the great companion of Aba Abdullah al-Hussain. Bless all of those who stood firmly upon the field of battle, refusing to abandon their Imam. Peace and blessings be upon him. Ya Allah, let us be so fervent in our prayers that we too would be willing to stand before a volley of arrows, gunfire, anything that it might be, for the love of the Imam of our times. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala. Insha'Allah ta'ala, with that, we'll proceed to the final segment of tonight. I'd like to invite Brother Saeed to deliver the Latmiya. Please rise as we remember the great companions this night. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. That's the chorus, if you could say it with me. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. I saw angels falling for you and their wings. I saw angels falling for you and their wings laid before you, where they walk to your final rest, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. In the city that is yours now, in the city that is yours now, where they whisper and they call out, so they mourn until they find life, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. I remain here without walking in the footsteps of the orphans, and my soul is in the darkness. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. If I fly there as I'm dreaming, if I fly there as I'm dreaming, will I know him when I see him? Or have I been blinded by sins? Ya Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. 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 Did you call me? Am I deaf now? Have we lost you? Are we dead now? Has my spirit been dissolved now? Has my spirit been dissolved now? Ya Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. Abdullah, Ya Hussein. Gonna read the Arabic one now. Inna laka sallamna, Ya Tharallah. ما تسلیم کردیم برای شما ای ابا عبدالله. إنا لك سلمنا يا ثرى من بيت الله ما ظل الله في عين الله من الحزن إلى الركن تطوف النحر والصرع وقد همنا وسلمنا إليك الحج والرجع تأبينا ولبينا وأنت البيت والمسعى تأبينا ولبينا وأنت البيت والمسعى يا حسين. طفنا سيدي عشر حول الموت والحسرة طفنا سيدي عشر حول الموت والحسرة تعبنا وقد جئنا لحج الدمع والثورة لحج الدمع والثورة بتعظيم وتسليم كما سلمت سلمنا وبسملنا وحمدلنا وصلينا وحوقلنا فقم فينا بينا وبالقرآن كلمنا ومن الصبر إلى النصر بخط الموت علمنا بخط الموت علمنا يا علي خط الموت ما خط محتوما وإن أبطى فقع فيه لتطفيه وخذ منه إذا أنا الصادق لأجدادي وشوقي شوق يعقوب وما نوحي على روحي ولا حزني المكتوبي فإن خانت نواياهم فإن الثوب يسلوبي أنا من حسين وهو مني على هذه فاض حزني أنا من حسين وهو مني على هذه فاض حزني أنا من حسين وهو مني على هذه فاض حزني ألم يسمعوها بلا ضيعوها أنا من حسين وهو مني أنا من حسين وهو مني أكانت هدفا للرشق والسهام ولا زال بها للأدعياء مرامي أنا من حسين وهو مني أنا من حسين وهو مني ونبقى ننادي برغم الأعادي أنا من حسين وهو مني أنا من حسين وهو مني ولا زال عليها الاعتداء يشتد عنادا ومعادا إلى محمد أنا من حسين وهو مني أنا من حسين وهو مني وبغض النبي من العجب فوغضبي لهذا الزمن فمن حثهم وجرأهم وعلمهم على البغض من يبغض النبي من العجب فوغضبي لهذا الزمن أما لسنا ببنيه حسن وعنهم شططا حرفنا جنينا بهم اقترفنا فصرنا خصما محمد فصرنا خصما محمد وهذا غضب الندى أفيقوا فغدا قياما وصنوا قدس الإمامة حذاري لبني محمد حذاري لبني محمد أحرب هي للعقيدة تعادي قيم المجيدة هذا لغة جديدة لتضفي عبثا محمد لتضفي عبثا محمد إنا لك سلمنا يا ثار الله إنا لك سلمنا يا ثار الله من بيت الله ما ظل الله في عين الله صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Saeed. Inshallah, with that, we conclude for tonight. To finish this program, I'd like to invite Brother Jahangir to lead the ziyarat for tonight. Please welcome him with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بر محمد و آل محمد بلندتر صلوات.